Welcome to Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. My name is Brandon Bornancin, a serial salesperson and entrepreneur, and I'm sitting down with the world's best sales experts to share their top secrets to sales success. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. And I'm thrilled to have with me today, Bryan Naas from Lessonly. Happy Tuesday. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Brandon.
Bryan, look, I'm thrilled to have you on the show. You come from 4 years of director of product and sales enablement at Salesforce, and now you're leading sales enablement at Lessonly. I'm really excited to dive in today, and maybe to kick things off for the show, let's just get started. I'd love to hear about how you got started into sales and where you've been and kind of where you're at today.
Yeah, my journey, like many people, was a little bit all over the place. I actually, coming out of college, I taught for about 4 years in a middle school, believe it or not, here in Indianapolis. And that's as crazy as that sounds, right? It's a crazy age, but ended up from there at a small software startup where I got my introduction to high tech and really caught the bug. The fun part about that business is I got to do a little bit of everything. So I started off as a sales trainer, which was a natural transition coming from teaching, and because the company was small, they said, "Hey, do you want to try sales out?" And I said, "Hell, why not?" Right? So I went in, I carried a bag for a couple of years, and from there ended up making my way to ExactTarget, where I really cut my teeth into sales enablement. I started helping build out the sales enablement team there about 6 months before we were acquired by Salesforce. So Salesforce came in, and it was a really great experience, and got to learn a ton about the tech world, be a part of the rocket ship that it was Salesforce at that time and still is. And now I've been at Lessonly for about a little over a year, and building out the program here as we continue to scale. So I went from kind of small startup to huge company, and now I'm back to small Lessonly. I love it.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I know Tim Crop pretty well over there in your yard. I'm sure you had an opportunity to work with him before the big acquisition, huh?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Tim was always great to work with, and I worked really closely with the marketing team and the product marketing team as well, because I did a lot with our product teams for product enablement. So yeah, Tim was always great to work with.
That's amazing. So what were some of the successes and failures / learning experience that you had at the first startup, and then selling for ExactTarget? You're selling to like CMOs, Fortune 500s, email marketing and marketing automation. Like, I'd love to just hear about what you learned at each of these places, both good and bad, that you can kind of share with the audience, because our audience are people that are, just getting into sales, or they're good, but they want to get great. And then it's also the top 1% that want to go to the top 1% of the top 1%. So share your knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the benefits at being at a tech startup about 12 years ago, what it comes down to is there was a lot of information out there, a lot of sales information, but it was this kind of sales enablement space was really just kind of getting started. And so when I was selling, it was just a lot of trial and error. And that trial and error meant a lot of failures.
Right? Like startup, you're just trying anything, right?
Totally. Oh yeah, I can very distinctly remember as I started doing a lot of prospecting and getting into that first sales role. I can remember all the spray and pray emails that I sent to huge lists of people, just hoping that they would, if I sent it, they would come, right? Going the field of dreams on it. So a lot of failures, just not getting to the right people, and in hindsight, understanding that, I never really had a solid understanding of kind of implication and understanding more than just those buying signals, and really diving in. And I look back and think, man, if I had the knowledge that I have now of the sales process and the buyer journey and understanding the buying experience, I think about how well how much better that could have gone from a sales experience, even as well as it went at that small startup.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. I'm sure you probably learned a lot during the way. And then when you went to Exact Target to sell, was that like getting your MBA in sales and marketing automation? Like tell the audience a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, totally. So I actually never sold at Exact Target. I came to Exact Target and helped build out the sales enablement team. So I got to really combine those kind of learning and education skills that I had early on in my career from a teaching perspective, and the sales skills that I had to kind of build this new team at Exact Target Salesforce that was really about how do we make our sales reps the best that we can possibly make them. But even though I wasn't directly selling, because that was our audience, they were our customer, we had to be experts at selling. And so we were constant learners of ourselves, learning the buyer personas, learning about our products, learning about that buying journey to understand how do we inject ourselves, how do we learn about our customers and learn about their problems and really provide a killer solution for them to solve those specific problems.
No, that's incredible. And I assume that the teaching helped you really educate and connect with the salespeople, right?
Absolutely, and that's one thing that I even push today with our sales reps. One of the things I love doing is I love leveraging our sales reps as teachers, right? Making them my trainers, because the beautiful part about that is when you have somebody who they have a skill. Let's say I've got a rep who's really good at negotiation. When I can leverage that, I can up level the entire team by having him share his knowledge with our full group. But not only does it help the entire team by up leveling them because they're getting those best practices and the information they need to be better at negotiation, it helps him continue to be better at negotiation, because to teach something, you have to know it as well or better than anyone else. And he's constantly honing that experience. And so by leveraging our reps as my subject matter experts, it really helps up level everyone, because we can really kind of crowdsource a lot of the knowledge that sits in the heads of those reps.
Yeah, and it was funny because right when you joined, I was like, I've got this sick obsession with LMSs and
Yeah,
recording everything, because like at any given point in time, I'm so worried that one rep is going to say some dime piece of information, whether it's negotiation, prospecting, social selling, cold calling.
yep,
I'm like, we got to capture that. We got to transcribe it, and we got to teach everyone to
yeah,
really had that educational experience. And then when you did the sales enablement for Exact Target and Salesforce, like just walk us through that whole experience, right?
sure.
Startup to massive company. Like what was the first year like? What was the whole tenure like? What were you doing? Wins,
Totally.
losses along the way?
Yeah, the craziest part early on was just drinking from the fire hose, going from literally a 25-person startup to Exact Target, which at the time was about 2,000, which was huge coming from a 25-person. And then when Salesforce acquired us, we very quickly, within a couple of years, were up to mid 25, pushing 30,000 before I left. And that is just the scale that happens with that many employees, the scale that has to happen creates, from a training and enablement perspective, creates unbelievable challenges, because not only do you have to match the scale of getting a ton of information out to those reps and capturing that information and understanding how to leverage, like you're talking about, how to capture that information that's sitting there in their heads that we can then distribute back out to the rest of the team. But because the company is so big and because we were selling into so many different personas, we had so many different silos of people that needed different information, that needed a different set of skills. So I would have reps on one end who were selling to Fortune 100 companies and were handling one account at a time, and their entire every breathing moment of the day was thinking about one, maybe two customers, all the way down to a rep who's selling to startups and thinking about mom and pop shops and getting their email marketing to them. And so the skill set that it takes to sell to a mom and pop shop that it does to sell to, let's say, a Coca-Cola is completely different, right? You've got certainly some base level sales skills knowledge, but for the most part, I'm a completely different sales process from one end to the other. And that creates unique challenges because you have to think about, from an enablement perspective, you have to think about those people different and all the reps that sit in between. You have to think about them differently or you're doing a disservice completely to them. And so I talk a lot about kind of this, we all too often in enablement and sales training, whatever it may be, we all too often kind of do this kind of one size fits all training, right? I've got a product coming out. And so I push that product information out to my entire sales team. And there's a certain amount of information that everyone needs, but by doing that, I'm doing a disservice to that enterprise rep who needs a different set of knowledge than the SMB rep who needs a completely different set. So we think a lot about kind of how do we create personalized experiences for our reps so that they get what they need in the time that they need it so they can do their best work in front of our customers.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible, man. I don't even know where do you start trying to train and educate 10, 20, 30,000 people? Like, I don't know. Like, what do you do first?
It's crazy. You start by starting small, which is not the best answer, but you have to start small. You have to leverage the team that's there. So we put a ton of time into leveraging our sales managers, leveraging our sales directors, our VPs of sales to be our boots on the street per se, because they are working with a group of 7 reps or maybe have a bigger team of 25 groups of teams. And so we had to leverage them. And so we spent a ton of time doing in the industry what we would call train the trainer. So we would train those sales managers to be our sales coaches, to be our sales experts from an enablement perspective, and provide them with a lot of guides. So to help guide through that training process.
What did you see content wise? What was the most helpful or educational type of content? Was it videos, guides, playbooks? Like, what do you think the sales reps liked most to quickly learn and then apply, the sales education?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the funny part about that is we tried a little bit of everything. We did a ton of video at one point, then we would switch into, I built a ton of e-learning at one point, which at that time was building these like big simulations with animations and characters and trying to make it fun. And ultimately those failed as well. Ultimately, what we found that worked the best was a combination of things. The most valuable asset that we ever produced on a consistent basis were cheat sheets, right? They seem super simple, but having those cheat sheets that would sit there right there on their desk about a product or a persona that I was selling into or an industry really helped the reps kind of have that quick reference guide that they could always go back to. Now, in hindsight, looking back a few years, there's great technology that does that now that we didn't have access to. We didn't have the resources at that time at Salesforce, but there's great technology that really helps reps sift through all that information now that I don't think, and I don't now, create these cheat sheets as often.
That's incredible. Yeah, I like the cheat sheets. I haven't seen a cheat sheet in a while, but I need to create them for my own team, man. So
yeah. I mean, they certainly have their point. I think one thing that in sales enablement space, sales management space, sales strategy, whatever you want to think, however you want to think about it, we go in these spurts of this is the silver bullet, or that's the silver bullet, or I need this training software, or that LMS, or I need this tool, and that's great. But I think what we too often miss is that the best programs, the best companies are using a combination of things. Yes, it's table stakes now that everyone has a CRM, right? It's table stakes now that everyone has a learning management system or a training software that helps them. And it's not one thing or the other. It's not just cheat sheets. It's not just a training software. It's about putting a program together that is thoughtful about what that experience is for the rep that is going to create that best rep and enable that best rep to do their best work. Because if we only leverage one tool, or we only leverage one process, we're leaving somebody behind, and we're not providing what one or two reps need that another one doesn't.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. That's great. And then, tell us a little bit about, so you're at Salesforce. Why did you decide to leave, and where'd you head to now? Obviously I know, but just so you could
Yeah.
highlight for the audience, what are you working on now, and why did you leave?
Absolutely. So I was at Salesforce almost 5 years. I left just before my 5-year anniversary. And I came to Lessonly, which is where I am now. And there were really kind of three big reasons I made the leap. One was, I had that kind of startup itch again. I had been in the startup world, went to Salesforce, loved my experience there, had an amazing team and a great experience. But the pace of a startup and the ability to make decisions quickly and move and iterate very quickly was very intriguing to me. So that was certainly one thing. The biggest though was I was ready in my career to own my own program, to own my own team, right? So becoming to Lessonly allowed me, and has allowed me to really kind of start from scratch. I am bringing the team up from the very beginning, building everything out, using all my experience that I gained at Salesforce and ExactTarget and previous software companies to really kind of help our reps be their best and be a model for our customers and our prospects. And that's frankly one of the third thing that I really love about my role here at Lessonly is I get to be in front of our customers and our prospects a lot. I get into the sales process. I go into meetings with our sales reps, and I get to share what I'm doing because, frankly, I am our target persona, right? We sell to directors of sales enablement, directors of training, VPs of training all the time. Like, I'm the exact person we want to talk to. So the being a resource for our reps is it's a rewarding part of my job, and being back in front of customers on a regular basis is really fulfilling for me, and kind of get some of that sales itch that I'm missing, not being in direct sales anymore.
That's awesome. And then Lessonly. So what does Lessonly do, just for the audience that may not know or be aware of that, of what your company does?
Yeah, Lessonly is sales training software, purpose-built for sales teams and customer service teams. So essentially customer-facing teams. So we help distribute information through lessons out to your team, and then put that learning into practice through scaled practice elements that ultimately help the teams perform, right? So everything from when you're going through onboarding, our customers use our solution to help guide their reps through an onboarding process that is very well defined with clear expectations, so that they can learn the information they need, put it into practice before they get in front of a customer, and then have them ready to do their best work.
Awesome. Well, amazing. And I know, a guy like you who's been in startup sales, who's been in education, who led sales enablement at one of the largest companies in the world, a little bit for ExactTarget, then Salesforce.
Yeah.
Now educating, sales enablement and sales teams nationally. The audience is dying to know, in your opinion, based off of everything you've learned over the years, what is your number one top sales secret? If you could go back
Yeah.
to 18 or 15 or 20 or 25 or 30, whatever it may be, if you could go back 10, 20, 30 years and you had one sales secret that you had to share to yourself and share to the audience to join the top 1% of the top 1% to maximize your sales, income, and revenue, what would that secret be?
Yeah, frankly, I think it's pretty simple for me. It is make learning a part of your day-to-day routine. And a big part of that learning is practice, right? So I encourage teams, whether they're using our software or not, I encourage sales teams, sales managers to integrated within their team meetings or integrated within their one-to-ones that they have with their reps, do role plays every single week to practice what you need to do to make those skills better that you have. So whether it's you take 10 minutes and bring 2 reps up and have them practice an objection, or have them practice a competitive situation or a pricing situation, whatever it may be, the more you can make everyday practice a part of that routine, the better you're going to be. I use often a sports analogy, and I'm a big sports guy. I love the NFL, I love Major League Baseball, all that. But
Awesome.
I often think about, like, we do a poor job of practicing in general in the business world. If we have a new product that comes out, oftentimes what we'll do is we'll put together a cheat sheet, we'll put together a PDF or deck, a one pager, and we'll send it to the sales team and say, all right, there you go. We might do a webinar, right? But we forget this practice part, where if you look at all other professions, again, sports, or you can even look at musicians, you can look at artists, right? Other professionals spend most of their time practicing, and practice is a part of their everyday. Think about the NFL. They practice 5 days a week, have one off day.
Blog about Tom Brady. The dude is practicing plays, practicing routines
Yeah.
every single hour.
Yeah, and it's funny you say Tom Brady. I have a talk that I've been doing at conferences for the past couple of months, and I use Tom Brady. I compared Tom Brady to Johnny Manziel, and how the practice piece, that dedication, that focus that Tom Brady has to constantly improve his skill, even as arguably the greatest quarterback of all time, that constant practice that he is putting in, because he is constantly looking to get better. And if you think about the sports world, if Belichick would hand Brady or the offense a new play and say, all right, we're going to run this today at the beginning of the game at kickoff, like, everybody would scoff at that and be like, that's ridiculous. You wouldn't do that. You would practice it for at least a week beforehand before you try to do it in a game situation. Well, if you think of the game situation of a sales rep as getting in front of a prospect or a customer to sell them, and if you haven't had that time to practice through sets of role plays, then we can't expect consistent success. And so if you can make that a part of your everyday, whether it's just 5 minutes in a meeting or a one-to-one or whatever it may be, it's going to make you a better rep. And so that when you do get in your game situation in front of a customer or prospect, you are ready to perform and kill it.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. And it's funny you say that, because I preach the teaching and the learning and the education and the role playing and the training, like is definitely one of those top things that you have to do. I study all the sports guys too, like you're talking about. And I mean, there's a reason why they're training every single day. And
absolutely,
I'm shocked that 90% of sales teams aren't studying every single sales objection. I'm not interested. No budget. Need to talk to someone. Need to talk to my boss. Already working with someone. Not interested. Unsubscribe. Like all of the role plays that you should have 50 ways to overcome each of these.
Absolutely.
And the fact that people aren't even prepared, or they feel like every time they hear I'm not interested, they don't know what to say in sales, blows my mind. So what do you do? Like, let's just say you work for a company that is part of the majority that is not prepared for this stuff, that is not role playing, because role playing and training and pitching and practicing is looked down upon.
Sure, because we think of it as a trade-off, right? The reason I think so many sales managers or leaders look down upon it, like you're saying, is they see training as a trade-off to time selling, as opposed to a multiplier of time selling. If I can make myself better, again, we don't have to, we have to get rid of this idea that sales training is a full 8-hour day in a room that we're sitting and someone's doing telling
Right.
us about a new sales skills with a PowerPoint, right? That is terrible and we shouldn't do that, right? But enablement and training is much different than that now, and having the right tools in place to do that, so that I can spend 5 minutes learning something new and practicing it, then I'm not taking time off the floor and I'm becoming more productive and better along the way, so that it's not a trade-off anymore. It is a multiplier.
Yeah, I remember, in this book, I talk about how I first used to play poker, and I'd go play Texas Hold'em with my buddies, and I would lose everything I own week after week after week. And that's just like sales too. Like, you go into these deals not prepared to overcome these sales objections, or to role play, or to handle the Q&A and the facts. You're going to lose time and time again. And then I
Yeah.
finally decided to study and train and obsess over learning all the top poker experts, what they did every single day. I read like a ton of books, and that's the premise of this book, is like, study, instead of reading 150 sales books, study experts like yourself, learn from them, and apply it without having to waste a decade.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And then when I finally learned how to do it, just crushed it in poker and in sales from studying the sales grades. So how do you, if you could convince your boss, like, hey, sales training is critical, how do you overcome like the fear of starting to role play? Like, oh man, if we start role playing and I suck at it, my boss is going to fire me. They're going to think I'm an idiot in sales. Like,
Yeah.
I'm scared shitless.
Totally.
Because they never did it with me. No one at IBM or Google would role play with me. And when we would do it once a quarter, I would be scared shitless.
Totally. Yeah. Because it's hard, right?
It's hard. It's scary. You're worried people are going to criticize you. So how do you create that culture of like, role playing's cool, you'll make a lot of money doing it, and you'll skill up?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's so hard because it's vulnerable, right? You have to put yourself directly in front of your peers and be willing to fail in front of them, because let's be honest, you're going to fail a lot of the time, because that's a part of the learning process. The way you create the culture, to answer your question though, is by making it about feedback and improvement, as opposed to being graded or judged, right? So and that comes often from the top down. When you have a sales manager or a director or a CEO, it has to be about failure is accepted and expected, and here is the feedback I'm going to give you, so the next time you don't make that same mistake, and you can constantly improve yourself. When you can create a culture like that, where failure is okay and vulnerability is okay, and it is about the feedback that you get from those experiences, and you see as a rep yourself getting better, it becomes less vulnerable and it becomes less scary, because you are going to improve. So you are willing to put yourself in those situations. When it's about judgment, or it's about being graded, or it's about reflecting on that failure and not necessarily getting better, that's when it becomes a culture that no one wants to participate in, and it becomes negative. We have to keep it positive about making yourself better.
Yeah, I love how you talked about it coming from the top down, because I used to be on the teams at IBM and Google where it would come top down. It'd be very judgmental.
Yeah.
Launching my own startup here at Seamless, I'm like, I role play, and I'm like, guys, I haven't done like meeting follow-ups from a demo, like cold calls in a month. So don't judge me, but let's roll.
Yeah.
Like,
And the
and I
best thing
won't
you
be
can
the
do,
best. I may not be
yeah,
the best guy, even though I'm the
totally.
CEO founder.
Yeah, that is the best thing you can do for your team, is get up there, be vulnerable yourself, and fail. Because again, everyone's going to fail. No one is exempt from failure, no matter who you are. If you're the founder of Seamless.ai, or you're whoever, right? Everyone is subject to failure. And failure is not a bad thing. It's a part of the learning process. And that's how we have to think about it. We have to think about the improvement that we gain from failure.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then role playing, like, to institute the role playing and the learning from role playing and preparation, what do you see as best? Is it daily role playing, like daily sharpening the sword, weekly, monthly, quarterly? Like, what would you recommend, and what have you instituted over at Lessonly or for your customers?
Yeah, honestly, that often depends on the company. We work with a lot of customers who do weekly role play, and that works for them. We work with other customers who do less frequent. We do about, I would say, on average, every other week. The more important thing than the actual timing, though, is the regularity of it. Right? Whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, whatever it may be, doing it at that regular consistency, both formally and informally, is important. And I think about it in a couple of different ways. So you have kind of facilitating more formal, where you're getting formal feedback, or you're doing micro role plays, as I call them, which is something like we talked about, 5 minutes at the beginning of a one-to-one, right? Let's role play this one objection for 5 minutes. Great. Here's your feedback. Now let's do a rest of our one-to-one. Or peer role play. We encourage our reps a lot to grab a peer, jump in a conference room, and practice something that you're getting ready to do with a prospect, or practice something that you just tried and failed at with a prospect. And so doing those both formal and informal on a regular, consistent basis is what is going to create that culture of being vulnerable, being okay.
Okay, that's amazing. Yeah, I love that approach. And then for scoring yourself on role play, like to see how you did, or to say, hey, do you score yourself after that role play? Do you have the person you're role playing with score you? Like, how do you judge like how I did this week versus the previous week?
Yep, that all depends on what you're doing. So if it's in an informal setting, like I'm going to grab a peer of mine and we're going to jump in, you and me, Brandon, we're going to jump in and try this objection. That is all about 100% about just the feedback. What can you tell me that from your experience? Because even if we are the same tenure at a company, the same position, we have different experiences. We all bring our own baggage, both from the opportunities we've been and from our previous experience. So those ad hoc and more informal are just about that feedback. When you get into the more formal type situations, we use a feedback criteria or a scoring rubric, as we would call it in the industry, that lays out a more formal set of criteria that we are thinking about. Things like how well are you crafting your discovery questions, if it's something on a discovery call. And then that's a sliding scale of, we use a 1 to 5 scale, right? And then again, no matter what you're doing, no matter how formal or informal it is, it always has to be about the feedback. The scoring mechanism is there as a guide to help the rep know where that focus needs to be the next time they get in the ring. But the feedback is really about what are some specific things that I can do to improve, or what are some of the specific things that I can tell you to improve on, to work on.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love the, do you, where's a good place to get the resources for a scorecard? I know I don't even have a role playing scorecard, and I'm sure a lot of people in the audience don't. Where would they go to look up some of that info?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually have a lot of it on the Lessonly website. So we have this method that we call the better work method. So we've worked with companies and learning professionals for the last 6 years since we've been in business, and using all that experience, we developed just recently what we call the better work method. And it's a 6-step process to building quality enablement programs. And it doesn't matter what software you're using, it doesn't matter if you're using Lessonly or not. It's a framework that you can use as a sales manager or as a learning professional, sales enablement professional. And a part of that is a scoring rubric or scorecard that you can use as a part of that process, as a part of your role plays.
Yeah, that's amazing. We'll have to link that up in the show.
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
so, I could download them, because I want to score myself and my team. It's funny. I'm just obsessed with recording everything. Kind of like Tom Brady in sales. I'm so scared that I'm going to miss something that I could learn
Sure.
from my team members, or my team members are going to learn something from me that I do that I don't even know I do. and they're like, oh shit, I can apply that learning that Brandon said that one thing to that one objection, and then it spirals into a 10% or 25% increase in conversion rates. Training and that role playing is so critical. I'm so glad you kind of brought up that
Yeah.
sales secret. And how would you sum up that sales secret again for the audience, just as we kind of wrap up? So Bryan's sales secret, for the top 1%, or for those that want to become the top 1%, is, in summary, just in a tweet, or say it again.
Yeah, it's about making role play and practice a part of your day-to-day routine as a sales rep, as a rep to make yourself better. That practice has to be a part of it.
Guys, you heard it from one of the experts himself, the director of sales enablement at Lessonly, formerly at a small company called ExactTarget and Salesforce, and then another startup. This guy has trained thousands of salespeople, right? There's a reason why he is saying role playing and practice in sales is critical. I also am a huge fan of it because I'm constantly trying to learn, and I'm sure most of you are. If you want to join the top 1% of the top 1%, this is something that you have to do. So thank you, Bryan, so much for sharing your sales secret. I hope it inspires, educates, and is applicable to everyone that's listening. And then for those that don't know how to connect with you or where you're at, please share with the audience, anyone that, where we can find you today.
Absolutely. Find me on LinkedIn, just Bryan Naas, Bryan with a Y, the right way to spell it. And you can find me there. I'd love to connect. I love to get together with other professional sales managers, sales enablement professionals, and really connect and share ideas. The more we can share with each other, the better we are going to make our teams. And ultimately, that's what we all want to do.
Amazing, guys. So after this podcast, start role playing, hit all the sales objections, start practicing, and connect with Bryan Naas. And Bryan, how do you spell your last name for the audience?
Naas. So BryanNaas.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Bryan. We really appreciate you for sharing all of your knowledge today. And for those listening, thank you for joining Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. And if you haven't picked up a copy, go to secretsalesbook.com. That's secretsalesbook.com, where we feature hundreds of sales experts and their secret to sales success.